But the point is that they're not asking for a guaranteed job. They're not asking for all these, you know, the labor unions getting involved, and Hoffa, who's just absolutely like, you know, a communist tyrant. I don't know what else to say. You know, these people are all collectivists. They're all trying to just, you know, gather and consolidate power and co-opt. The reality is that they're all being paid by the New World Order movement, which is the Federal Reserve System. I mean, let's face it. That's where all the greasing is going on. These are the owners of the corporations that they give money to. You have to understand, it really is that deep. It's, imagine that you're the Federal Reserve and you own ExxonMobil. So you give ExxonMobil all these tax breaks and all these other benefits through the government, and then let's say there is a reason to bail out ExxonMobil, or maybe make it better a bank. I'll use another Rockefeller asset. Let's go to the, let's say that Wells Fargo, Chase, you know, the Chase, J.P. Morgan Chase. Okay, so you own the majority of shares in the Federal Reserve, plus you own Chase. You get a bailout from Chase and put the taxpayers in the on the hook for the interest and the debt. Now, only purely evil, conniving, Machiavellian, you know, Luciferian psychopaths could even construct such a devious plan to deceive the people. But it's not without cost. I mean, unfortunately, there are many people that know what's going on and are part of the system, and the minions under them are compartmentalized. They don't know what's going on. They think they're doing the better good or the good of the world or the environmental movement. They're working for Greenpeace or someplace else that Rockefeller is controlling through his interests. And again, many times you have to understand that the Federal Reserve System was set up absolutely to deindustrialize and devalue the dollar, to bring us exactly where we're going and we're almost at, which is complete and utter bankruptcy. Realize we were a flourishing country. The Federal Reserve came into fruition, came into place, and as soon as it came into place, the tax-free organizations, the tax-free foundations, the quote-unquote philanthropists, they all put their organizations together. Big Pharma became an investment business in the same year of 1913. It was a very pivotal year for the control grid. Now, once they have the control grid in place, which is very close to, obviously, they did it in all these other countries. Look at Zimbabwe, look at Argentina. I mean, you know, and then we are sending, like I said yesterday, we're sending, you know, through the sister project, federally started by Eisenhower for some odd reason, and I don't think he foresaw what it really meant, but now it's since the ideals of China, and since the Rockefellers and David Rockefeller, and of course in 1973 called Mao Zedong, one of the greatest leaders in history, and it is the world model through the UN, the China model, one-child policies. It's just astounding that they'll send mayors from America, American mayors from small towns across the United States, to China, to their cities, and to see the differences, and the only real, like, yeah, well, yeah, it looks like government's in a lot of their face. Boy, they're really into their business, and not realizing that, oh my God, aren't you awake enough to realize how much government is in our business already? How close we are actually to this China model? I mean, you can call me whatever you'd like, call me crazy, call me a conspiracy theorist, but the evidence leads exactly to that. I mean, we have a deindustrialization of the manufacturing. We have GE getting paid no taxes. We have them building power plants in China, where if you build a coal power plant in America, Obama will bankrupt you. They're bankrupting coal, which is clean and actually is so clean with the scrubbers and all the things that they use that technically you're putting out only carbon dioxide, which is actually required for humanity. I mean, if you really think about it, it's just an incredible lift to you know, to see. If it's like opening up a window that was closed and the room was in darkness, and then you can see that all these corporations are moving to control all aspects. Now, the people start to wake up because it starts hitting them in the pocket, which is the whole design plan. I mean, that's why they're putting a police state together. That's why they put all this homeland security. That's why they set up all these FEMA camps. That's why they have all of this preparedness for civil unrest, because they're creating the civil unrest. Now, I know most people, especially anybody that is listening that is either skeptical or has no idea what I'm talking about at this point, and maybe just from curiosity or listening in, you have to understand that this is not a joke. I mean, when ABC put SWAT television on, when Gates was infiltrated SWAT in the military police, nobody recognized that, you know, you're moving into this Gestapo, this SS. No, that's crazy. But now look what happened. And then you have things like Ruby Ridge, right? You have incredible showing force incredibly from the government, use of force on our own people. Forget about how we drop love bombs, you know, on all the people that are quote unquote oppressed across the world. That we must make the world safe for democracy, the republic that is no longer a republic. Well, we must get our republic back. So I think what it comes down to is, again, the Federal Reserve is having these their rallies this weekend. I think that's critical. I think that's awesome. But what do these guys want? I mean, what is it actually that the people want? That they're the protesters, the Wall Street protesters. Well, it appears that they have posted on their own Occupy Wall Street site, Demand 1, restoration of the living wage. This demand can only be met by ending free trade, by reimposing trade tariffs on all imported goods entering the American market to level the playing field for domestic family farming and domestic manufacture, as most nations that are dumping cheap products onto American markets have radical wage and environmental regulation advantages. Another policy that must be instituted is raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour. If $20 an hour minimum wage was adopted or forced on business at gunpoint, small business would disappear overnight and large business would join the transnational stampede to slave gulags like China and Vietnam. Exactly. You see, you're being co-opted by, you know, the George Soros crew and all of these socialist, quote unquote socialist / communist in disguise. But you have to understand, controlled opposition is sometimes you actually even pay your opposition. I mean, Herbert Hoover paid for Germans. You can look this up. Funded Germans during when they were our enemy. Potentially, they funded them because the Nazis and that doesn't come out. They don't talk about that all through the rise of the stock market crash, and it's just amazing when you look into history the things that aren't told. Whereas, of course, you had also Hoover was also actually funded the Communist Party, funded the opposition there. So, they want to have a certain control over, even if the people want this, they want to control what the people want. I guess that's probably the best way to explain it. So whatever the people want, and you can see clearly that they have they want something, they want to control that want. Now, with the Federal Reserve, that's a difficult thing to control because now that you're talking about destroying their golden goose. So they definitely are going to have to figure out a way to control that and get you to be happy and continue to be enslaved. But we must not be fooled or tricked by this whole thing. I mean, they can't end the Fed and, you know, create even more tyranny through some other device. So we must be wary of the fact that the Federal Reserve owners are the criminals. They're the ones that really should be in jail. However, they are also the wealthiest people and families and on the planet. You're talking about the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. It's just an unbelievable amount of wealth. You could not even quantify it. They own most of the wealth of the world. It's absolutely a complete takeover. But the people are starting to wake up. Like I said earlier, the people are beginning to look behind the curtain. You know, they got to the Emerald City. They managed to get up that yellow brick road, the hard journey they get there. They finally get there, and then they're looking behind the curtain, and they're still saying, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The forced opposition, the Acorn people, the Obama-nauts, you know, these people, George Soros and his Media Matters and his propaganda crew, all trying to brainwash the population into socialism, which will ultimately lead to like a blend of communism and fascism. We're already almost completely fascist because the government actually, listen, Mussolini was the one that defined, I think, fascism the best way, and he said it really shouldn't be called fascism, it should be called corporatism, because what it is, it's an alliance between government and the corporations. And that's what we have, and we've had for a long time. So hypothetically, technically speaking, we are absolutely under a fascist government because the people don't matter, the people don't care, the people don't exist. You know, all they are is a tax means, literally a profit. You're born, you're given a birth certificate with a number by the Department of Commerce that actually affects you to the debt of our nation and affects you to, they actually put a potential price on you, an asset value on your existence, what you will be worth, and that value is literally traded, and you are cattle. I mean, I know for especially folks that have never heard that, they're like, what? Yep, look it up. You're technically, the reason the birth certificates are going around, and you have a birth certificate, if you look closely, recently they've changed this, but if you look at people that are older, like older senior citizens most likely, if you still have your original birth certificate, on the bottom you're going to see in the corner it's going to say issued by the U.S. Department of Commerce. Now, what does the U.S. Department of Commerce have to do with your birth certificate? Think about it. Well, your birth certificate is a number. The number correlates to the stock market, correlates to an actual stock value that you can technically find. And that is the value that your life is worth to the quote-unquote bankers, or to the debt that Social Security secured in 1934. Now, when Social Security came into effect in 1934, now most folks are looking at Social Security, and you can't talk about that because you're saying, oh my God, you know, well, you know, look how important it is, and these people that are living on it. Well, it's true, but it's really a trap also, because if you die and you're single, they get all the money. If you die and you haven't paid into it long enough, they get all the money. If you're married, your spouse does get payments. However, it's limited only if you have children. I mean, it's like ridiculous. So the majority of people, if they die young, you have to stick with me here, are not going to be able to collect, and they keep making it later and later. So if the same Rockefeller and Rothschild people, okay, who are also the owners and controllers of Big Pharma, and Reed Elsevier, who I'll go into in a little bit, who are basically the kingpins of propaganda